Hello, good evening, and welcome back. The meme lord has done it. Well, I mean, he's second place, which is first place for the losers. But Elon Musk becomes the world's second richest person. And this could, of course, be down to just an overinflated market of Tesla, as, of course, he did tweet out a little while back that Tesla shares are overpriced, in my opinion, which did seem to see them plummet. And he just does all sorts of random shit again and again and again, but it is beautiful. It is astounding to see that the meme lord himself has become the second richest man in the world. And I know that people do liken him to Tony Stark of Iron Man fame, and that isn't such a coincidence because, of course, the idea of Iron Man and how can we make this an eccentric billionaire that's likable? Well, for the movies starring Robert Downey Jr., the scriptwriters did sit down and think, well, who can we base it on? And they thought of Elon Musk, and then they interviewed him and they sat down with him for quite some time in order to understand who he was, and they did base the films off of Elon Musk. So it does kind of make sense. And then Elon Musk, of course, has his own flamethrowers, which legally are definitely not flamethrowers. Definitely not. But it does make a lot of sense. And then you've got just the absolute mad lad going on the Joe Rogan podcast and smoking weed. Whether or not he inhaled is down to debate. Again, seeing Tesla shares drop and then saying, oh, I'm going to go public at $4.20 a share, which again saw them drop, and him being fined. It was like $50,000, something along those lines, which doesn't really matter to him because he's a multi-billionaire, but it's nice to see the law being worked on equally. So in response to that, because, hey, we're all a bit black-pilled at the moment with an election being stolen. So it's nice to see news like this with Tesla's market value hits $500 billion for the first time as Elon Musk becomes the second richest person in the world amid claims Defect allowed hackers to steal its Model 10 within minutes. This was back from August. It was a Bluetooth thing, the way they got over it with the code, but we'll get to that soon. It's not reported here, but it's just what you pick up. But Elon Musk himself being the second richest man in the world, overtaking Mark Zuckerberg at third place, is white-pilled news for all us black-pilled people because, as I say, with a stolen election, you're probably thinking, well, there's not really any hope and people don't seem to give a shit. And that might be true, that a lot of people don't wish to fight for things worth fighting for. That could very well be true. However, if the options are given to them, if there is just a free marketplace of ideas, essentially, and people have the freedom to associate as they wish to, then it seems that somebody like Elon Musk provides incredibly bloody popular. And yes, I know that his car factory has been failing quite a lot, and you can look back through the back catalogue of Independent Man if you want to have a breakdown of Tesla. However, his batteries seem to be pretty effective. And at the end of the day, it's the batteries that are going to make the difference. Because if we're all trying to be drawn in to a Green New Deal and a green plan that I know Biden wishes to enact, which is understandable as a socialist, but also Boris Johnson, who is a conservative in name only. We really need a word like rhino of Republican in name only for conservatisms over here, but calling them a kino is just like then a sino. And then it just enacts visions of China, so it doesn't quite work. But yeah, if people really wish to enact, only electric cars from 2030, or maybe hybrids if you're lucky, for the new sales at least, then you're going to need not only the electrical creation, which we've gone through on this channel before, that just isn't going to work, and like only a quarter of councils actually have charging stations for electric vehicles in the UK, but ignoring that and suggesting we could get to a smart grid where they charge and discharge your appliances in order to help out everybody else, and it's just one big battery of the national grid for the United Kingdom, you're still going to need that storage. And without that storage, you're not going to get anywhere. And of course, that is particularly pertinent when it comes to range. And then there's also the limiting factor for aircraft, for example, which, of course, the first solar-powered aircraft was flown around the world from London a few years back, and more power to them. But its wings tend to be a bit too flexible. There were problems, and it would never be able to carry passengers. They couldn't create enough electricity for it, in which case they need to rework the idea, and therefore batteries become important again. They need to be able to charge and discharge. Even buses, which are supposed to be better if you ignore the diesel fumes, that they use an incredibly primitive form of batteries of just a flywheel that is spun up at the depot, and they use that, and that's that's it. Not too dissimilar from spinning precession gyroscopes used in space shuttles, for example, where they link in and out in order to counter spin. But that's hardly a battery. In fact, Britain's biggest batteries are just water reserves that they pump water up to a high place, and then when they need a lot of battery, or a lot of electricity rather, for example, half time at a very important football match, they will then flow that water down through the electrical generators in order to generate enough electricity, because everybody in the UK is turning on the kettle for a cup of tea. And that is actually done. And Tom Scott has a good video on that for when it didn't quite work, because following that was a TV show about pandas, and people didn't want to get up because they wanted to watch pandas. So good job there. But back to Elon Musk. What a lad. So, Tesla shares rose 3.9% to a record high of $542.35 billion in early trading on Tuesday, valuing the company briefly at, the shares at 542.35, valuing the company briefly at $514 billion. The shares are about 27 cents each, if memory recalls. Shares of the electric car maker have risen nearly 28% since the S&P Dow Jones indices decided to add the company to the benchmark index from December 21st. They say Tesla is the world's most valuable automaker after shares grew fivefold this year, despite making 4% of what Toyota make. I mean, cost per vehicle is incredible compared to the others, and it could be a bit overpriced. It could be because it's the trendy thing. And Awaken with JP has a great satirical video on, pretending that you're doing something virtuous just because you're driving a Tesla. Or it could be that he's actually onto something, of course. Best of luck with that. So Tesla is the worst, but the latest rally boosted Elon Musk's net worth by $7.2 billion to $127.9 billion, making him the second richest man in the world. He overtook Bill Gates to become the world's second richest. Musk started the year ranking 35th, and his wealth has grown this year by $100 billion. It isn't even the end of the year. We're 11 months in. That's almost $10 billion a month. It's bloody good going. What a dream to be autistic. Tesla's market cap breach followed less flattering reports on Monday about a security deficit in the company's popular Model 10 SUV. So, essentially, from this is that because people like wireless keys, and the idea is to make it convenient, if you have the key near you, you can open the door, you can unlock it without having to get your key out, start the engine without using the key, and, not an engine, there's no internal combustion. You can start the motor, there you go, start the car, and drive off without needing the key. And once it's on, it's on. Therefore, it's quite straightforward. Or you can mimic the key, of course. In order to get around this, there are two ways. One is if you do have a key like this, of which can be hacked into wirelessly, you keep it in what is essentially the equivalent of a lead-lined box, which is a bit like a jewelry box. You put your keys in there when you're not using them, and that stops the signals. Similar thing for nuclear radiation. Straightforward, easily done. The second way is Tesla thought, that's nice and all, but we'd rather not have to rely on the individual to be an individual and take personal responsibility. So instead, we're going to create a PIN code. So when you get in your car, I know it's a bit more hassle, but you'll just have to type in a PIN code before you can start the vehicle and set off. And that was it. Why this is still making news? Well, I guess people don't like Elon Musk. I wonder why. Why do people not like a meme lord? Why do people not like the fact that they got tested 4 times for COVID in 12 hours, got half positive, half negative, and thought, these tests might not be reliable? I wonder why people might not appreciate what Elon Musk has to say. The researchers from Belgium informed Tesla about the issue in August. Yes, and a software update was created to better protect the key fobs. Simple, easily done, pin code, job done. Could you just use a key in the ignition? Yes, of course you could. Is that Tesla's way because they're fancy? No. Is that really possible to do a product recall in order to then put in an ignition slot that is necessary? No. So did they do the best that they could do in the situation? Yes. Fair enough. Good job. Let's turn your negative spin story, Daily Mail, into a positive one. Because why not? They do mention that Bill Gates would still be the richest man if he hadn't given away about $54 billion over the past few decades. Given away is very generous because if you look at where it's gone through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, if you wish to be generous, then he's hoping to change the world in akin to his values. But if you're not, then it's for tax write-offs and because he wants to make a lasting impact on the world in order to make his life easier as well. But let's not get too black-pilled. So yes, white pill reasoning. Elon Musk is the second richest man in the world. And not only are we likening him to Tony Stark, of course, wishing to go to space and quite possibly being the first company to land a man on Mars, which is astounding given that you had a space race between two superpowers of Russia and America racing for that. Yes, of course, you got the man on the moon in 1969, but the idea was to then get a man on Mars in the next decade. Of course, that then stopped as Soviets kind of ran out of money, and so it was put on the back burner. But the idea that just an individual behind PayPal could then say, I like space, I think we should put a man on Mars, to then beat out a government that started it 50 years ago is obscene. And it really blows out the water the idea that, well, some things aren't going to be profitable to start, but they're worthwhile, in which case the government has to do them. Well, it doesn't really seem like that, and it's also why Elon Musk seems to have be on the best track in order to be the first trillionaire ever, officially, if you discount Saudi princes. But let's hope for that, and let's hope he goes down a similar route to Jeff Bezos, who bought out the Washington Post, and instead buy out a magazine that wishes to promote facts instead of fiction, and be more objective in news. And then we'd all have a very, very Merry Christmas. And seeing as he seems to like to diversify and just try things on a whim, I'm almost convinced that he'd be up for that. Just to go, oh hey, I'm doing all these incredibly profitable business ventures, and Tesla can now join the S&P 500 because it needs at least 4 consecutive quarters of growth, and he's managed 5 now with Tesla, so now he's eligible. And therefore, hey, why don't we try something new? Because Elon Musk clearly doesn't need sleep for whatever reason, and if he does, then the floor of his factory will do. Yes, he might be worth over $100 billion, but just beds aren't worth the cost. Why would you? It's for these people that the money clearly doesn't matter as an individual item. It's clearly just about making something happen, and it's more of a game than it is about being wealthy. And more power to them, but bloody envious of them. So I would definitely foresee him buying out a newspaper and going, well, yeah, why not? Or he could just buy out a news network like CNN, who are going under because they don't seem to be able to report on Trump anymore. If Trump's got a good idea, he'll just lay low for a month, wait till those media embassies just die off, and then come back, because there won't be people to lie about him anymore. Although I'm sure they'll try. So Musk could buy out one of them and just change it radically, because he's got the money for it, and make it profitable again. It wouldn't be that difficult. If you've got something like CNN, apparently the most trusted name in news, and then make it actually trustworthy, then you definitely gain a lot of traffic back. Obviously, Fox News was trying to cover the more honest side before they cucked, and now you've got Newsmax, the new one, which seems to be overtaking Fox as well, then yeah, Musk could easily do that, just as Bezos did with the Washington Post, and it'll be far more popular. He's got the money for it, so we're just going to have to watch this space. But that's about it for now. So, as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think Musk is getting this because he's actually successful and he's got a knack for it, and he's going to do something worthwhile, seeing as he was on Joe Rogan's podcast as the second richest man in the world, or that it's just overly inflated? Tesla isn't really going to do much. It's just the popular fashion icon, and seeing as that he got bailed out by about $24 billion for COVID relief, that it's not really his money, and it's very misleading to suggest that it is. Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what I have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.